Hello everybody, wanted to record a quick video as we're heading into lesson 5, which is project 1. And the best advice I can give for project 1 is to make sure you look at that sample project that's in the announcements. That is the perfect template and how to lay your project out, about how long it should be, and how to make sure you hit every section that's in the grading rubric, which is how this project will be graded. And that's another good piece of advice. Make sure you look at the grading rubric. It's not only in the announcement, but it's in this week's lesson 5 announcement as well. That shows every section that needs to be graded. And this is exactly how I grade the project. I just go down the grading rubric and I make sure I check all those sections, and each section you get a certain amount of points. So that shows you exactly how this is graded. And that sample project does a great job showing you how to make sure you address all those sections and you get the most amount of points possible. Another very important thing, by Wednesday, everyone in the group should have done their 3 interviews. Now, that for those interviews, you need to use the discussion guide, the same discussion guide that you should have put together last week. And there's also an example of the discussion guide in the announcements if you need to get an idea about how many questions you should be asking or what kind of questions. What's important though is you need to make sure you meet as a group and discuss what you learned in your interviews. For example, the project needs to be about what everybody learned in their interviews. So if there's a section of the project and I see that person only talked about what they learned in their 3 interviews, then you're going to lose points. Like, for example, if there's a group of 6 people, the project needs to be based on all 18 of those interviews. So make sure you talk as a group about what you learned in the interviews, and that's what goes into the project. And speaking of that, this is a research project. So make sure that everything you have in the report is on what you learned about Nike within your interviews. So, for example, your section shouldn't be about what you think about Nike. It should be what you learned in your interviews about what the customers think about Nike. A good example is if you're talking about competitors for Nike and you say Puma is one of the biggest competitors that Nike has, but then I look through the interviews and nobody mentions it, or it's mentioned only once. You have to make sure you base your project on what you learned in the interviews, not what you think about Nike. So make sure you focus on that. Make sure this is a research project so that you focus your project and the answers in your project paper, on what you learned through your interviews you've done as a group. And those are really the biggest things. Make sure you focus on that sample project. It's a great example and template on what you need to do. Make sure that you talk with the group and the project's on all of your interviews, not just the 3 interviews you did. And as always, if you have any additional questions, do not hesitate to reach out.